on the topics faith, family, and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK, and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer, and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television, as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J. Lauren Norris.
Would it be fair to say that I haven't always been the most compliant, obedient, willing to follow instructions kind of person like ever? Yeah. There have been some seasons in my life that would be absolutely true. Compliance has always been a hard thing for me. And I think as a leader, I see it from both sides, and that makes me question behavior sometimes, both of leaders and those they lead. And that's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J. Lauren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and it's pretty fascinating to me when I go into fast food restaurants or local retail establishments or just about any kind of business these days. And you can place an order, you can tell people what you want, you can tell them exactly the way the taco is supposed to be made, or the sandwich is supposed to be made, or the tea is supposed to be made. It's pretty common for me to drink a lot of water. And often I will go into a restaurant and I will order a glass of water with lots of lime. And then when I realize that it's going to take the server a few minutes, days, weeks, months, hours to get back to the table, I'll ask them for an extra glass of water with no ice. And I have had everything from another glass of water exactly like mine, meaning so much ice in it that the water barely fits, and one little sliver of lime, not a lot of lime. I've had them literally take my water off the table and bring another one exactly like it, and I'm thinking, what was the point of that? I've had them bring me nothing but ice in a water with no water at all, just ice in a glass, no water. I've had them bring hot water, like you're ready to make tea with. I've had them completely forget altogether and not come back. And when they do come back, they come back again and they just exchange my glass of ice for another glass of ice with a little water in it. Really what I want is just another glass of water, because I know that with that much ice in there, I can refill my glass 4 times before they come back to the table again. But the instructions apparently are really complicated. Can I just have 1 glass of ice water and 1 glass of water with no ice? The likelihood that that lands on my table after the first request, maybe 50-50 on a good day, which really surprises me. It makes me wonder, why can't people simply follow the basic instructions that they're given? But you find it everywhere. And it doesn't matter if the person you're giving those instructions to is a minor or a senior. It seems to be across the board. And some of it, I wonder if it's like I was when I was younger, even before I joined the military. I remember having a store manager who said to me one time, he said, I need you to get those 16 cases of green beans. I think it was green beans, either green beans or green peas, because I knew it was something I wasn't really interested in at all. But he said, I want you to get that 16 cases of green peas, and I want you to bring it up here and make it an end cap right here on this aisle at the end of the veggies, because we need to get rid of those things. And I went to the back and I loaded up the dolly with 16 cases of green beans, and I brought them back to the front, and I got to the aisle where I was supposed to be, and I realized there's like stuff on the floor, like it had been spilled and somebody had just kind of mopped around it, not really cleaned it up. And so I put my dolly off to the side and I went and got a mop. And then I realized the mop wasn't getting it off, so I got some special cleaner. And then I got a scraper, and I was down on my knees scraping the gooey stuff off the floor where I was going to build this end cap because I wanted it to look good. And well, because frankly, this stuff shouldn't be on the floor. And the last job that I had, that was my job, was the floor. I polished, I waxed, I mopped, I cleaned. Being down on my knees scrubbing the floor was kind of the norm of that last job. And so now at this job, he's telling me, put a stack of beans at the end of the counter, at the end of the aisle. And I'm on my knees scrubbing the crap off the floor that doesn't belong there because whoever does the floors isn't doing it, right? And he walks up behind me and he says, you know, I gave you a task, an assignment. Put beans at the end of the aisle. That's it. And you've somehow made it a project. You've been at this for half an hour. And I'm like, well, look at the mess on the floor. He said, the floor is not your job. That's not your responsibility. All I asked you to do was put beans at the end of the counter. I've got other things for you to do. So put the beans at the end of the counter right there at that aisle and go check on register 7. Okay. That's what you want me to do. Now, the floor was only half done. That really bugged me, that I hadn't completed a task. But see, in his mind, I was adding tasks to the assignment that had nothing to do with the assignment. In his mind, that was a quick hit. Go grab the dolly, park it here, make some beans available, stick a price tag on it. Should be done in 5 minutes. We'll move on to the next thing. Instead, what he found was I was a little reluctant to comply with his expectations. Now, I have to be honest and say in my defense, all the other end caps were much more elaborate than a stack of beans on a dolly. It didn't look done to me. It didn't look right to me. It didn't feel right to do it that way. Somehow, the pride that I would take in doing any job would look at that job and go, well, look at all the other aisles. None of the end caps look like that. But if that's what you want, then I guess that's what you want. And I guess that's what he wanted. He was just a little unclear in his intentions. Right? I didn't have a standard to go by. All the other end caps looked a whole lot better, but this is what he wants? Really? So do I do it to that level and do I stop there? And I think part of the challenge that we see with young people today is very similar. On the one hand, they want to be industrious. They want to prove themselves. They want to show that they can do this. They also want to show what was naturally in me, and that is, I have my own ideas. Maybe they're dumb. Maybe they're bad. Maybe, like every other teenager in the world, they're not well thought out. I mean, that could be true. May I remind you, the Wright brothers had no pilot's license. Nobody taught them to fly. They had ideas of their own. They thought outside the box. They didn't just comply. They didn't just follow instructions. The basic instructions they were given probably sounded nothing like a flying airplane. But without them, where would we be today? And dare I say, there are probably dozens upon dozens, thousands upon thousands, perhaps millions upon millions of inventions, of innovations, of new ways of doing things. Steve Jobs said nobody wanted an iPad or an iPhone or an iPod when I made them. Nobody cared. And I made it. And now they can't live without it. But that's thinking outside the box. That's innovation. That's invention. That's where it comes from. That creativity that says, if I just keep thinking like everybody else thinks, I keep doing what everybody else does, then I might be compliant, but we'll have nothing new. Leadership has to be significantly more clear on instructions. Very well articulated, but let me go one step further and say, a good leader doesn't just clearly articulate the instructions of how to do it. In my opinion, a good leader opens that up and says, here's what I'd like to see accomplished. What I really want to know is, can you think for yourself and think outside the box and find a way to make that happen? See, there are some times that I'll say to the server what I say to every server: I like ice water with a lot of lime, and oh, by the way, I drink a lot. And I've had them come back, the servers that are industrious, 2 or 3 times with the pitcher. Every time they walk by, they have water and they top me off. Or sometimes they'll come by and just say, I'll leave a pitcher if you like. Leave it. I will drink it all. You can refill the pitcher. But I've also been in places where particular restaurants that I go to on a regular basis because they're local here in our little hometown. And I know where to sit because I know the servers are not going to get back before my glass gets empty, and I can pop out of my seat and grab the pitcher from the server station myself. I've even been known to fill my own water to the degree that the pitcher is empty and I have to ask them to refill the pitcher because they're that off in another world and not paying attention. My glass is never going to get refilled. If I've refilled it 5 times myself and now the pitcher's empty and you're not refilling the pitcher, there's no chance you were going to refill my glass. That's a different thing than saying, all I want is that my water stay full. I don't care how it happens. You want to bring me a pitcher? You want to bring me a hose? I don't care. Just make sure my water stays full. That end goal, that's really what we're after, right? If getting the peas out of the back and getting them sold, if that was the objective, then just give me that objective. Let me figure out the way around it. See, one thing that I've learned, and it took me a long time because of the way my brain functions, if you've ever seen a Chilton's auto manual, it doesn't just have a picture of a tire and the lug nuts and the wheel and say, you got to take this off to change the brakes. No, it's an exploded image. And so you see the lug nuts, and then you see the wheel, and you see the tire, and you see the hub, and you see the brakes, and you see the calipers, and you see the screws inside the calipers, and they're all exploded out in every direction like a freeze frame of an explosion. You can see everything, every little detail for when you take it apart and when you put it back together. Another good example of that might be Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr. When he's in the boxing ring the very first time and he throws a few punches. And when he throws those punches, the whole thing stops. And he says, I'm going to throw this punch and it's going to knock him off balance. And I'll hit him in the chest and take his wind away. And then I'll hit him in the nose and break his nose. He won't be able to breathe. And he won't be able to open his mouth because his jaw's broken. He won't be able to breathe through his nose. And he won't be able to catch his breath because I've knocked the wind out of him. And now he's listless. He can't fight back. And now I can just pummel him. But he goes through that whole sequence of all of those thoughts in a matter of a millisecond. And his plan is there, and then he acts out his plan. And it all happens so fast that everybody else is like, wow, how did that happen? When I saw that in that movie, I thought, that's how my brain works. It has always worked like that. When I'm given an instruction, the first thing my brain does is explode it into all the little details and say, okay, what could go wrong? What are we missing? What's the potential pitfall? What part of those instructions is incomplete? What's missing in the instruction? What's missing from the instruction to the end goal? Will those instructions even get us to the end goal? And that's probably, that's been my downfall. That's been my trap. That's been my snare most of my life. Because it causes me to question everything. And for a lot of people, many of my teachers, many of my military leaders, many of my coaches in athletics and otherwise, they just want compliance. They want to give me an instruction and know that I'm going to follow the instruction. I'm not so good at that, especially when it seems to me those instructions are missing something. Or those instructions and the goal that they have stated, they have no relationship. If I keep doing this, I will never get here. Like Common Core math. Some of the problems that kids are doing in math these days, I honestly look at them and go, how did you get to that conclusion? I remember my uncle telling me, get your best calculator. He learned on a slide rule. Would I know a slide rule if you hit me in the head with one? No, probably not. But he learned how to do math on a slide rule. Trigonometry with a slide rule. He could do it faster and get the right answer than I could with a calculator, because you got to know what buttons to push. What is a sine or a cosine? What's the relationship between that and a number? If you just know to hit the button to get cosine because the test asks for a cosine and you go, what's the cosine of 12? 12. 12? Cosine. and that's all you know, you don't understand the relationship between the numbers and their mathematical equations, you're not going to get there. Oh yeah, by the way, I did go to school for electronics engineering. I had a 3.82 GPA until I broke up with my girlfriend, and then I failed my final exam because I couldn't concentrate. That's how I ended up in the Air Force. But see, even there, I had the challenge that I like to think outside the box. I like to ask the questions, what if I don't do it that way? What if I do it a different way? I already thought I was sleeping in class, even in high school. And in the middle of a high school geometry class. It was either geometry or algebra 2. I was basically sleeping in class, and the teacher was working out a problem on the board. And I was sleeping because I'd already solved the problem. I didn't do it her way, but I got the right answer. And she called me to the front and she said, solve this problem. And so I solved it the same way that I solved it on my paper. I got the same answer that she got. And she looked at it crossways 3 or 4 times, and then she said, that is not how we solved that problem. I'm like, I got the right answer, didn't I? Well, you got the same answer I did, but it's not the right answer. What? How did I get the same answer, but yours is right and mine is wrong? She said, because the process of solving the problem is what we're after. Let me give you another word for that. It's called compliance. Follow the instructions you're given. Now, here's where I come to the crux of the challenge that I have in today's world of leadership and those being led. There's a lot of expectation of compliance because that's what young people have been trained to do for the last few decades. I know. I was part of the early experiment. Compliance. I'm not asking you to think through it. I'm just asking you to do what you're told. Follow the instructions that you're given. Do something, even if it's wrong. See, those are all tests of compliance and will. Can you follow the instructions? Will you follow the instructions that you're given? I'm going to take that one step further. I remember in basic training, when I was asked the question, would you ever draw your weapon or take a life of an American citizen if it were a lawful order? And I said, I can't imagine a scenario where a lawful order would tell an American soldier to fire an American citizen. I don't think they expected that kind of answer out of an 18-year-old. But that's what they got. Is that a yes or a no? I'll let you figure that one out. Tell me when a lawful order would tell an American soldier to fire an American citizen, and we'll discuss that. But I can't think of a lawful order, so could I comply with an unlawful order? It's a different question, isn't it? See, we've trained for decades our children to be compliant. Follow the instructions you're given. In fact, I believe, my own personal opinion, that a lot of the Common Core math is an exercise in compliance because it's about following the process. In fact, I know teachers who have said straight up, it's not about getting the right answer. I don't care what answer you get as long as you follow the process that I'm putting in front of you. Do it the way I told you to do it. There is no right answer. There is no wrong answer as long as you follow the process. So as long as you comply, you can never be wrong. And yet we have young people today who are pushed to the envelope to ask them to bring a glass of water with no ice. That's more than their brains can handle. That's more than their job expects of them. That's going above and beyond. That's like 50% tip level stuff. If I have to bring you an extra glass with water and no ice, that's very, very specific. See, this compliance thing expects them to do exactly what they're told to do and nothing less. Don't think outside the box. Don't worry about the conclusions that you're coming to. Don't worry about whether or not the end result is the right thing. Just do what you're told the way you're told. That's it. Now, the challenge for me is really simple, and that is when we look at the process and we ask the why behind the process. If the process is a test of compliance and will, then the why behind it is manipulation. I'm not so keen on that. As a leader, I believe you should lead with good intention and good integrity. And if you're going to lead by giving instructions and asking things of others and setting those expectations for them, then you should be very clear on what those expectations are. You should be very clear on your intent, and you should have the integrity to say, here's what I want to see in the end game. If there's really only one way to do it, let me show you what that one way is so that you can model that. If there's several ways to get to the same conclusion, I don't care how you accomplish it. As long as it works the same in the end, doesn't hurt anybody, and doesn't cost any more money or any more time, then rock on with your bad self. Maybe we'll learn something new. Maybe you'll teach me a new way of getting this done. Like I said, I've had people drop off a couple of glasses of water. I've had people swap them out. I've had people refill them every time they walk by. I've had people simply leave the pitcher. I don't care what your solution is. I just don't want an empty glass on my table. I want my glass of water to have, I don't know, water in it. Is that too much to ask? I don't care how you solve the problem. Just get to the conclusion. That was my original intent. I drink a lot of water. I always want water in my glass. Not too complicated. How you accomplish that, I don't care. See, leaders have to be really clear about what that intent is. What is the goal? What are we trying to accomplish here? How are we going to get there? I'm not trying to manipulate you into doing it my way. I mean, there are 1,000 ways to do it. Here's 300 of them. I can remember early on in the job application and resume process, I would tell people, don't look at my resume. Those are the things that I don't like doing anymore, the things that I have done in the past. But I'm looking for something new, something challenging, some new opportunity. And your job description looks like something that would challenge me and it would be fun. I haven't done all those things before, but I'm very competent and capable at them if you'll give me a chance. Then I would also say, I'm also a thinker. I think outside the box and I come up with 1,000 ideas a day. 900 of those might be crap. They still keep coming. 100 of them might make you a millionaire. One of them will change the way you do business and life. Pick the one that you want. But the minute you tell me I'm not ready to hear your ideas, I don't need that from you. I just need you to do what you're told to do. I just need you to follow the instructions that you're given. At that moment, you'll be on my resume and not on my future. Now, you can take all the skills and the talent and the gifts that I have and you can put them to work, or you can find somebody who will simply follow instructions. I can follow instructions. I can also create instructions. But compliance, not my strong suit. Not real good at compliance, which I have to be honest and say, in the world of my theological endeavors, my faith orientation, I still have the same problem. Not that I want to defy God, but I do find myself reading some things and going, that doesn't make any sense. Why do we have to do it like that? And God says, I didn't ask for your plan. I just want you to obey. That's how I know you love me, because you obey me. That will start messing with your head, because totalitarianism and God, are those the same thing? No, he's a king. He kind of gets to make the rules. And obedience and compliance are not the same thing. Let you think on that one for a minute, because there is this thing called perfection. Not so many humans are good at that. And there's the thing called excellence. That's doing the very best that you possibly can with all the talents and resources that you have. And then the gap between perfection, nothing wrong, everything perfect, and excellence. There's a gap between those two. You do the very best you can, and perfection is more than you can do. The gap between them is called grace. Leaders need to learn that too. Consumers, customers need to learn that too. Perfection, that's exactly what my expectations are. I want it just like this every time. And excellence is when you try the very best that you can, realizing you're not going to get perfection every time, but at least you're trying. Those are totally different than the tyrant who says, I want it my way, and they begin to scream and yell when it doesn't work their way. And the person who's not even going to try because they realize I can't do perfection anyway, so why even give it an effort? They're not even looking for grace. They're looking for excuses, and those are different. I'll close with this. We came back from helping a friend who was hit by the storms last weekend, and on the way back we decided we'll stop and grab a Blizzard or a banana split or something. We pulled into the local Dairy Queen. And this Dairy Queen, there were only 4 employees on Memorial Day weekend on the highway coming back from the lake. It was busy. Now, when we got there, there's only one family in front of us and a few teenagers that walked in right in front of us. And the family had just sat down and made their order, but they hadn't gotten their stuff yet. The teenagers were in front of us and they were placing their order. And then we ordered. It was about 14 minutes from the time we walked in the door until we placed our order. It was another 15 to 20 minutes from the time that we placed our order until we received our order. Not a complicated order, but the drive-thru was very busy and inside was very busy. And you know what was really funny? It was that we were at the front of a line that was probably 20 people deep. There were at least 10 cars in the drive-thru. And I never heard one person raise their voice. I never heard one person yell at the people behind the counter. I never heard one excuse. I did hear, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry for the wait. And a couple of, shouts at the back amongst each other of, I need this really quick. Not one complaining customer. Not one person yelling at them, hurry up, why is it late, why is it wrong, what are you missing, this is not what's supposed to be in my bag, none of that, not one time. I don't know why that particular Dairy Queen, because I know I've been in others where there would have been a whole brouhaha. They would have had to call the police because somebody's ice cream was melted before it got to the counter. That wasn't this place, and I'm not sure why, but that was a picture of grace. There's perfection, there's the high standards, there's the expectation, there's what we want, and then there's kind of what we get. And the gap between them is called grace. When you're leading and you lead with good intent, you give people that destination, you give them that great intent, you tell them, this is what I expect to see. I can give you some ideas on how to get there, how it might be accomplished easier, with less pain, with less effort, more efficiently, and less expense and less time. But I also want to give you the leeway to kind of figure it out on your own. And if you get there and you've done it differently than I would have done it, good on you. But if you never get there because you're not trying, probably going to replace you. If you never get there because what you're trying isn't working, then maybe it's time to try something else. But I want to know this without a shadow of a doubt. Less that you're willing to comply and more that you're willing to try. If you'll try, we'll continue to work on this until we get there. I'm not trying to make compliant robots. As a leader, I want to set a goal and a destination and drive you in that direction with motivation, with opportunity, with the challenge to think for yourself, to get out of the box, to come up with new ideas, new inventions, and new innovations. In that way, we both win. If you're a leader who's only demanding compliance, ask yourself about your intent. Is this manipulation? Is this tyranny? Or is this real leadership? I'm J. Lauren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Lauren is a master teacher on storytelling, and I learned so much. I'm really going to have to sit down and go back through everything, and I think I might have to have some more coffees with Lauren, but it was totally worth my time, and I really highly recommend it if you're looking to grow your ministry, grow your business, grow your career. Lauren will serve you well.
Thank you.